Welcome back to The Debaters Season 2, a debate game show for high school students here in Vietnam, produced and broadcasted by VTV, National Educational Channel of Vietnam, and British University, Vietnam. I'm your host, Dustin Chevier. Today's topic is quite interesting because everyone lives in a different society where some people are more privileged, they're born into a family with a higher income compared to other families. And we are going to discuss maybe some other policies that might be beneficial or may not be as beneficial as we think they are. But the students today are going to be discussing this, and it's going to be very, very interesting. And the motion for today, that we would increase subsidies for underprivileged families whose children have strong academic performance in schools. So as you can see behind me, we have two different teams. Without further ado, please let me introduce the contestants.
We are LIVEL, and we're from Dong Nai province.
For us, the students, this motion is kind of very hard because it focuses on economy and money and like financial things, and our knowledge in this motion is not large enough, so we have to make a lot of consultants from our mentor.
Our LIVEL team is quite interesting because this is their first tournament, but they performed very well. They are fluent in English. I don't need to change or make many additions or do a lot of rehearsals. And besides, we also talk about how we can help the kids to transfer the ideas and information into a logical flow that the audience can also understand.
This is just simply a new experience, and we can challenge ourselves to be improved better. And even though we haven't got much experience yet, it is still a wonderful memory, and we will appreciate this.
Hi,
We are the Circus Clowns.
Actually, because the case for us is quite complex, so we had a lot of different perspectives, so we had a bit of difficulty picking out which one is the main stakeholders and how we had to protect them.
What is the first thing for us when we actually debate about something? We need to understand the feeling, the emotion of that particular stakeholder. So I asked a lot of questions for them to visualize what will happen if they are one of the students that underprivileged. I think that CIRCUS CLOWNS is a very interesting team because they only have members that in grade 9 and in grade 10, which is the younger team in the debater. However, at the same time, I think that CIRCUS CLOWNS is very an X factor in this competition. There are a lot of ideas in their argumentation actually surprised me, and I hope that they can do the same thing in the debate.
And for you, I heard you guys are some of the youngest contestants. So who's the baby in the group? And how old are you?
I'm 14 years old.
14, and you're also 14 as well.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are the youngest, but I'm also a little bit biased because I heard you're from Dong Nai. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Because in Dong Nai, Jiang Lake, I love fishing for cá hoàng đế. But you guys, thank you so much. So, LIVEL and CIRCUS CLOWNS. So we can't have the debaters without the judges. So please let me welcome our wonderful, fantastic judges. And now it is time to get started with the debates. From the proposition team, Team LIVEL, please welcome Trận, Mai, Jump. From the opposition team, Team CIRCUS CLOWNS, please welcome Min Nguyệt. So I'm going to start over here. So why LIVEL? What does this mean?
Well, you know, sometimes people's brain just come up with something that even they're not aware of it.
Okay.
And yeah.
So just a random name that you guys came up with.
Yeah. It's actually, there's no explanation for the name. It just popped up in my head when I registered for the debaters.
No problem, because every season there's always very unusual names, and I have to ask. So the opposition team. Hi.
Hi.
Why CIRCUS CLOWNS?
I mean, it kind of popped up in our head too, and we kind of thought it was funny at that time.
Okay. It's still funny. It's an interesting name. Circus Clowns and LIVEL. So for this debate right here, this is the first debate. It's important. It's going to be setting the foundation for the rest of the debate. How are you feeling?
Nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous?
I think it's 7.
A 7?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not as high as I thought it would be. And for you?
Probably the same.
A 7, okay. This is equal playing ground right now. So from Dong Nai and then the younger team. So for the first debate right now, you have 3 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is not open. In the proposition team, you will be going first. Do you understand the rules?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, I love that. So let the debate begin.
Nelson Mandela once said that education is the strongest weapon to change the world, and we are here today to make that change for talented poor students who are deprived of education. So what is our stance in this debate today? That government would provide talented poor students with a subsidies equivalent to basic wage in their areas, which is basically higher than what they earn by working. The debate takes place in developing countries because it is not debatable in developed welfare state. Coming to our first claim, how we would decrease high school dropout. So what is the problem? Nowadays, as we can see that school supplies are okay, more schools are built, more teachers are hired, but many students, they don't go to school, and even if they do and get high grades, they still drop out. So why? The problem here is not about the supply or the teachers, but it is about the demand for school. Why? Because many parents, they don't want to send their kids to school because the opportunity cost of studying is too high, even with the current subsidies they get from the government. So why the current subsidies are low to the underprivileged students? First, it only covers the study expense for kids. The second, subsidies is outweighed by the income of students working at home. Let's take an example of Theodore Scholz, a famous economist once talked about his parents who against educating him and keep him on the farm. Because his parents' mindset is that first, they are not sure the investment in educating their child is worthy. Second, they are afraid of being left behind when Theodore grows up and successful. So how can we solve the problem? By increasing the subsidies for poor talented students to go to school, parents are not losing money on children education, but they are benefit from it. Therefore, it ensures that they keep their children studying until they finish school. So why everything above is so important? Because when students finish school, they get the high school diploma, right? Which is a must if they want to access higher education, higher scholarship, which will open the door to a well-paid job in the future so that they can get out of the poverty trap. And that is it for my speech. Thank you.
I would like to split my speech into 2 main parts. Firstly, I would engage with the proposition size idea, and secondly, I will develop on our case. So getting into my rebuttal, you said that the parents would let their kids drop out of school of believing that education is not worth it, but actually in nowadays context, given that everyone goes to school and actually people are aware of their stand in the society, they will know that the parents and the child themselves would know that education is the only way for them to get out of poverty. And if those child need the support, they can always seek for scholarship, which are actually directed towards education. Now I would like to get into our points. So it is arguable that a small amount of subsidy cannot pull anyone out of poverty, and that stress, in this case, happens on both sides. The ultimate goal on our side would be to reduce the burden on unprivileged students. With that said, we come into debate today with 2 arguments. One is why subsidies would double the burden on unprivileged students and the effects of that on their future. And 2, why would it increase the unfairness amongst the unprivileged students themselves? So, in the current situation, the unprivileged students are already facing a lot of burden. So firstly, they get to go to school on a large portion of their family subsidy, of their family savings. Secondly, they know they're the only hope for their family to get out of poverty. And thirdly, they have to face the stress of maintaining a high academic performance at a very young age. So these are only students who are less than 18 years old, and they are very mentally unstable, easily affected by stress and also by the parents and having to follow their family's every decisions. So what would happen to them if we decide to increase the subsidies? With the subsidies increased, they would feel and know that it is now a coercive choice for them to study and maintain a good result. They cannot afford to drop out, unlike the current situation, because this is now a new source of income for their family. So this can lead to three scenarios. First, if they're able to maintain their performances, it is still likely for them to suffer from mental illnesses, and this in turn worsen their academic results. This leads to our second scenario. So in the second scenario, if they are unable to maintain that, they might seek to extreme measures, which, for example, cheating. And in our third case scenario, which is also the worst case possible, if after everything they are not able to maintain that good results, it is very likely that they will drop out of school, lose that income for their families, and it is likely that their family will abuse them mentally and physically. For example, they can get beat up, and also they get treated like a failure. So this directly destroys their happiness by breaking the family bonds. And this scenario all lead to devastating outcomes for their future, and this matter will be further elaborated by our second speaker.
Great job, you guys. The opening for this, fantastic. And your fluency in English, really surprised, so it's very clear. The judges, I'm not sure what they're going to say, but Jum, you had a 7 on the scale of being nervous before, but how do you feel now?
Let's say more nervous.
More nervous. Why?
Because, like, I think that my speech is, there are a lot of things that I didn't say in my speech, and that will be left into the second teammates.
But they're going to cover it for you though, right?
Yeah, I think that may put them on a large scale pressures.
This might be a big problem for your team right now, but Drum, we'll leave it at that. Wait, hi.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
I mean, both nervous and excited and relieved.
Good. You should feel relieved because it's you just finished. Now you're done. And Drum, wait. My opinion doesn't matter so much. We got to hear from the judges. And judges, they're busy taking lots and lots of notes. န့ing, you're finished taking notes. Please share us some of your thoughts.
I think that in the first speech, you didn't spend so much time in the case setup, but you tried to, like build up a lot of information, a lot of context for every single argument. I think that's a very smart strategy. For prop side today, I think your ideas is very, very clear. And I really like the idea where you say that most parents, they prefer to leave their children home just because when they are at home, they will earn more money and they will spend less money. I think the calculation there is very, very spot on. It's really easy to follow, really easy to understand. For the op side today, I think that the rebuttals was there, but I think it should need, a little bit more polish. But I think you got the main idea why the opponent's argument is not true. The idea about the bad effects, however, I think it is still a little bit vague for me, as in you talk about how they're going to face a lot of challenges and they're going to be very, very stressful. But in the end of the day, I think the main focus of this debate is about whether or not we should increase the subsidies, which means that on your side of the house, you can say they can ask for scholarship, but maybe you can just, like not increasing the subsidy. I don't know. Like it depends on the strategy on your side. But when I look at your case, right, I don't see those things really fit in, as in maybe on your side, there might be subsidies as well, it's just like not as much, and I need you to argue for it while you give me like why is it like so going to be more stressful. I don't see that it click with each other very strongly like the proposition side. So in this first turn, my 10 points will go to the proposition side.
All right, Stuart, please, let's hear some thoughts.
In terms of the points, I think just to kind of echo or just to reiterate some of what ÄNG said, the notion that we're really thinking about is the increase in subsidies. It's really the increase of subsidies that are already there. That's the kind of thing I really want both sides to focus on a little bit more. For the proposition side, you kind of mentioned the current subsidies that are in place. However, for the opposition side, I didn't really hear the focus for the increase in subsidies, just more kind of like your arguments against subsidies in general. I thought that your rebuttal, I like the fact that you kind of picked out the argument for the rebuttal. However, I think it kind of fell a little bit short. with the notion of they know it's their only way out of poverty, well, if they don't have that subsidy, why would that change that? So that's something that I kind of just picked up on a little bit. And for the proposition side as well, the notion of a poverty trap, is that kind of the extension, or is that how far, I think as you go through your rounds, your development of poverty trap and why that's going to affect this case should be developed a little bit more. For me, just because I think actually the proposition side, we're focusing a little bit more on the motion itself and the notion of increasing subsidies, it goes to the proposition side. So my 10 points are with you guys.
Okay, 20 points for the proposition. Hugh?
With the proposition team, I like the fact that you go directly and say what is your policy here, increase to what level, increase to the basic minimum wage of that particular area. I think that is a very smart move. It's kind of like help you to preempt a lot of attack from the other team as well. However, I have to say when it goes to your argument, yes, it is a good argument, but I feel like it's not strong enough for me. Because all of this, it sounds correct, but it lacks that substance for me, right? Otherwise, we just kind of argue on like common understanding and common reasoning, and there's going to be no punching line to say which side will win the argument, right? With the opposition team, I do think the rebuttal is a bit shaky when it's claiming that education is the only way out of poverty. The way when you say that it's the only way is not necessarily true in reality. I like the fact that when you start talking about the mentality of the students who receive the subsidies, I think it's a very interesting point to make, because sometimes we talk a lot about like other stakeholders when we forget that actually the main person affected is the students who receive the subsidy. I get that point, but I kind of taken back when you start to jump up with a lot of like pushing the boundaries too much, like mental illness and cheating, and I think that's too much of a over generalization. Without giving me like strong evidence, I think that's too much of a jump. And I think in debating, you can't exaggerate the situation to win the argument without providing strong numbers and evidence. I will go to the team at least that give me a standing of where their stance come from and what is their policy. My 10 will also go to the proposition team in this round as well.
All right. Drum, you just won the hearts of all the judges and got 30 points. How are you feeling?
Yeah, somehow I feel relieved.
Okay.
But I still think that the opposition team, they have so many, they're gonna do well in the next round. So.
In debaters, sometimes the first debate, the first round, the team will win all the points and then they go and lose the debate.
Yeah, right.
So don't get too confident and overly excited, okay? All right, so keep that in mind. Nguyện, what are you thinking?
I just wish I had better points.
Yeah, but again, don't worry, because right now it's the first round, and with the first round, they can still easily lose, and you guys can take it away, okay? So don't be so hard on yourself. It's gonna be all right. It's totally fine, okay? So contestants, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. Currently, right now, the proposition team, Team LIVEL, they have 30 points. The opposition team, Circus Clowns, they have 0 points. However, this is the first round, and this doesn't mean that much. We will have the second round right after the break.
So why the current subsidies are low to the underprivileged students? Subsidies is outweighed by the income of students working at home.
With the subsidies increased, they would feel and know that it is now a coercive choice for them to study and maintain a good result.
For the proposition side as well, that as you go through your rounds, your development of poverty trap and why that's going to affect this case should be developed a little bit more.
So welcome back to the Debaters Season 2. We need to do the second round because this will be changing the game. From Team LIVEL, please welcome Mai, Nguyen, Nguyen, John. From Circus Clowns, please welcome Nguyen, Jia, Huang, Min. Hi, you guys.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
Fine? You got a big smile on your face over here. You are down 30 points. Do you think you can take it in this round?
Perhaps.
You can do it.
Perhaps, I don't know.
You can do it. Golan, you can do it. I know you guys can do it. Because you are the youngest group as well. And they're from Dom Nai. So there's two things. I like Dom Nai, and then I'm rooting for the youngest group. So I think you can do it. But for the second round, it's a little bit different compared to the first round. You have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. And POI is entirely open. Do you understand the rules?
Yes.
I do.
Perfect. Let the debate begin.
Before getting into adding up to our first speaker ideas, I'm going to point out that the insensible points that you have made in the first round. You say that education is the only way to escape poverty, and you mentioned that stress is a burden of students. So if education is the only way, then stress is not a matter. You have to cope with stress because education is the only way. So you haven't given us any scientific facts to prove that stress will lead to mental illness, because not every pressure is harmful. It can be an incentive to develop, and that is our rebuttal. Having all said that, there is a vulnerable but major part of the society that is often forgotten to be highlighted in the discussion of education. It is the young girls, and we are here to say that increased subsidies, it will empower younger students in underprivileged areas. And what are the problems that we are probably facing? High school dropouts do include a large number of girls, and this is attributed to the two main reasons. Firstly, like our first speaker have said, that the opportunity costs are too high, and the girls in these underprivileged families do not have the ability to afford and access our education. However, more importantly, these girls are negatively affected by the conservative ideas of the poor areas, which is girls do not need much study, and the invention in education of the girls are not likely to be profitable. And the main mission of the girl are as well as women in this. No, thank you. In this case is that they have to marry and have children. And how can increasing subsidies will definitely make a change and poses a solution to this problem? Firstly, in the status world, parents have to force their female offspring to marry because either they or the parents do not have enough financial ability to take care of the young. So marrying a husband, it means that they can financially support for their female offsprings. However, it will pose numerous serious threats to these women, like they do not have enough knowledge, they are not aware of the woman's rights, so they do not know how to protect themselves if family violence are supposed to happen. But in our world, we increase subsidies, which means that if parents encourage their female offspring to go to school, then financial problem will be relieved. And in this way, girls can themselves be independent and be responsible for their future, and their safety can be ensured. And the evidence for this is in Malawi, girls who do not drop out because of financial burden are less likely to become pregnant, and the same case happened in Taiwan. So that's why increasing subsidies would provide a financial incentive for parents to encourage their girls to go to school will avoid this problem. And how has these girls make an impact on our society? These girls can set the role model, and they will spread out the media coverage. Like, look at how Hanie, the beauty queen of Vietnam, has incredibly changed the thoughts of her mountainous area about the matter of early marriage among young girls. And not just about the society, the girls themselves do benefit from higher education and our increasing subsidies. They are provided with knowledge, so they do know how to value themselves, they do know how to make value and how to impact other people. And for the family, if their child is happy, then they are happy too. I rest my case here.
Imagine you are an underprivileged student, a really smart one. For the past 10 years, you have always gotten the maximum scores on every single test that you took, with a very good image of a brother or sister in your small town. Now imagine for the next several months, all you can receive are B's and C's. Imagine how would you look now in the eyes of parents, the people that you are meant to get the extra subsidies for. how would you look in the eyes of other people, especially your friends now? Wouldn't it be just better if you do not provide the subsidies for students with good academic performance in the first place? Therefore, we believe that subsidies should not be provided, should be increased for better students in the first place. Our speech will have two parts. First, I would like to propose my rebuttals in order to enhance our own. She proposed that it will empower young girls. And so she said that a large number of girls are now being discriminated and not being able to go to school, and providing this subsidies will get them more chance to go to school. However, we believe that providing them this money will not change the system, because they have already had this set mindset that the girls are supposed to be marrying, and they aren't supposed to go to school. And even if they have enough more money, they will be spending that money to boys, not these girls. Even if they will spend this money on these girls, she made the impression that only girls should be encouraged to go to school. She also proposed the idea that they will be a role model, but this idea has already collapsed. And let me say that most Vietnamese people with access to internet now do not discriminate anymore. And your idea of Hạnh does not fit, because people in rural areas like underprivileged families do not have access to internet. Therefore, your idea of Hạnh is of low impact in this debate. Now, I would like to pressure that even if you are a good student, increasing subsidies will certainly mean the students resorting to means like cheating. And as they grow up, they will not meet the requirements to get good jobs and will be a burden to society. First, our argument would be that increasing subsidies for better students would mean a significant reduction in the welfare of their life when they grow up in the future. On the first scenario of this argument, at present they will have to suffer much more subsidies when subsidies are increased for them. Why? A, subsidies are increased, the comparison of them with stronger students and privileged students will surely increase. And to the point they're completely disbelieved by parents, to the point that when they study, they will get their parents out of poverty. And even when they're mentally stable in the future, they will be so unskilled they will not get jobs. And according to American studies, 25% of Americans, when they feel stressed, have a significant reduction in grades, making cheating an even more feasible probability in this debate. On our second scenario, it will seriously affect the future lives of the students in your world. We would pressure the students would grow up to be hopeless adults, deprived of joy, as they have been beaten up constantly in the first place when they are small. And their happiness has been destroyed from a small age, and as they grow up, they will become more and more miserable, which in your side will go against the morality of this debate. Secondly, increasing subsidies means increasing unfairness for students, especially unprivileged as well as the poor one, because they have no means, they cannot believe themselves, but then have to resort to means such as crimes, and which will affect the rich people as well. And that is why we believe that we should not increase the subsidies for students with strong academic performance in school in underprivileged areas. Very proud to propose.
All right. Thank you. That was good. I'm quite curious. Trận, do you think you're going to take all the points again, or do you think he's going to steal some points from you?
No, I think I cannot predict that.
But judges. Hill, we'll start with the best first.
I'm a bit lukewarm about this second round. I'll tell you the reason why. With the proposition team, yes, I get that rebuttal where you say that the opposition team needs to prove that not every single pressure will lead to stress and all the problems. Got it? Taken. But I'm a little bit like lost when you go to the arguments. You spend most of your speech about girls, right? I don't know whether it's an example or it's a further argument. Example, too long. Now, if it's a further argument of yourself as a standalone argument, I think it's not a smart move when you're trying to narrow down the one particular group. Instead, you should have broadened up to the broader, more stakeholders than just choose one particular group of students to become the second argument. That is the reason why it's very hard for me to say whether it's a good one or it's not a good one for that particular reason. Now, with the opposition team, I quite like the fact that you brave enough to address the immediate argument of your team, which is about the girl, and he addressed it right away. I think it's valid because sometimes it's the mindset is already embedded in the generations that increasing subsidies may be diverted to other uses, for boys or for others, let alone for other girls. I think with that rebuttal, and he directly attacked the argument of your entire second argument, I think that is a very smart rebuttal. However, my problem is when it goes to your argument. You fall into the same mistake with the previous one, which is you push it too much exaggeration into like how they're gonna grow up with those abuse and like affect mental welfare being, whereas the foundation of that in the beginning is very shaky, right? One team give me a clearer structure and a stronger rebuttal. That's why my 10 points go to the opposition team.
Ooh. Stuart. Hi. Let's do this.
I think with some of your points, there still is room for real kind of development in terms of like what is the impact. And I felt like both teams kind of got stuck on one or two main ideas and didn't really get to develop the parts of the argument. So for example, the evidence that there are certain female figures that we've had here in Vietnam who've been very, they've had a huge influence over, what is capable for women to do. That's fantastic, but for me, again, it deviates slightly from was this a direct result of subsidies, and is it directly related to the education that this particular woman received? So I think I liked that. I like this as an example, but I think you spend a bit too much time on it as a whole main idea. For the rebuttal, I do like the fact that you identified the mindset may not change. So even if women go to education and go through education, perhaps in the areas that they're in, this mindset towards marriage might not actually change. For me, you spent a bit too much time on the rebuttals and nowhere near enough time on your argument for increasing unfairness. So I want to see in the next few rounds someone pick that up and really develop that idea, because I think you were a bit rushed at the end. For me, though, I was very impressed with how your rebuttal kind of picked out the other team. So for me, it's going to be 10 points to the opposition.
This is getting interesting. Ương.
I do share some thoughts with my fellow judges. Both the prop side and the op side fail to show me clearly what stance you are going for. In this particular debate, you have to focus on two things. First of all, increase subsidize or not. Second of all, the only stakeholders that are going to receive this increased subsidies are the families of students who can do well in school, which means that if your children cannot perform well in school, you will not get the increase. So that should be very clearly highlighted in your speech and should be connected, interwoven in every single argument that you guys made. And I failed to see that happening in the speeches of both of you guys. So the thing I need to hear is that for prop side, explain to me why is it justified that only these students deserve to bring the increase of subsidy back to their family? Because this is a new policy and there's a lot of justification that you have to make. Op side, I need to be clear, what do you want to do in this debate? You don't want to have the increase, you want to keep it the same, or you think it is okay to increase as long as you increase for everyone, not only families of these students. I'm still very unclear what you guys want to provide in this particular debate. So for that being said, to be very honest, it is not very clear debate by far for me to judge, and the lack of engagements as well, but I would say that my 10 points will go to the team that has come a little bit closer to what the main focus of this debate is, which is, for me, the proposition side. So my 10 points still go to them.
Okay. I don't want to say a lot of pressure on the third contestants, but do you agree with the judges?
I totally agree with them.
Totally?
Yeah. Because there is some points that during the working process we do not recognize, and they are the one who recognize that for us. And so.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because Hugh, his standards for this are going to be extremely high because he knows this like the back of his hand. So it's this is a hard debate, especially that judge right there. Hi, Min. Hi. Do you think the last contestant is going to take it away and get all the points?
I can't predict.
Okay, so we're just going to have to find out?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so contestants, thank you so much. Please return to your seats. So currently, right now, Team LIVEL, the proposition team, has 40 points. The opposition team, Team Circus Clown, has regained some of the points. Now they have 20. There is a 20-point difference, but we just finished the second round. We still have 2 more rounds, which can determine the winner of tonight's debate. However, we'll start the third round right after the break.
we increase subsidies, which means that if parents encourage their female offspring to go to school, then financial problem will be relieved.
However, we believe that providing them this money will not change the system. Even if they have enough more money, they will be spending that money to boys, not just girls.
You fall into the same mistake with the previous one, which is you push it too much exaggeration into like how they're gonna grow up with those abuse and like affect mental welfare being.
Welcome back to the third round of The Debaters Season 2. The previous two rounds, a little shaky. The judges were not too happy with things, but I think the third round is going to be a little bit different. So please, from the proposition team, please welcome ~NG HTI. From the opposition team, please welcome ~GAO THI. Okay, this is the third round. How are you guys feeling right now? Proposition team.
Just a little bit anxiety.
Little anxiety. Yes. It's going to be okay. Well, let's talk about something different, because you know I like Chiang Lake and Dom Nai. Okay, so if when I go to Dom Nai, because I live in the south, maybe I'll message your team and we can go fishing for Ga Huang Day. So opposition team, how are you doing right now?
I think our tide is not really that good, but I'm going to try my best to maybe shift a bit of the points on my side.
Yeah, because I think I'm feeling a little bit better for the third round. And I don't want to say this to make you feel more pressured, which is the last thing I want to do, but you are the youngest contestant ever to be in the debaters. How does it make you feel?
I think it will not make much of a difference in the future, as we will be welcoming much younger contestants.
Yes.
So I will become like kind of an old contestant soon.
I wouldn't necessarily say old, because both you and Min are the youngest, so that's awesome. So audience, please give them a round of applause. I love the enthusiasm from you guys. Thank you so much. So for the third round, it's quite similar to the second round. You have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is open for this round. Do you understand the rules? Okay. In proposition team, you will be going first. All right, let the debate begin.
The UN Convention on the Rights of Children stated that countries recognize the right of children to education, and they will pursue this by every possible means based on equal opportunities. And the policies of the proposition team has successfully solved that all these goals. And now, my speech will be divided into 3 parts. The first one, the reinforcement and the clarifications of the claims of the previous speakers. Secondly, the refutations of the opposition team's claims. And thirdly, clarifications of the clashes. To begin with, I will explain why only the children with good academic performances receive the support from the country, because the country itself don't have enough resources. Furthermore, these children has the potential, and we are maximizing the potential for them to have a bright future. They can easily escape poverty and thus creating a positive effect. We do this based on their scores, based on the statistic, which means there will be no way you can refute this. Furthermore, why are girls relevant in our debate? Because the girls need the platform to compete. They are surrounded by the misconception because girls are more likely to be forced out of school. For example, if you take a boy and a girl, the girl will be more likely to be forced out of school because of the false conception. And therefore, we want this motion to be equally applied to all of the objects. Now comes to the rebuttal part. The first speaker from the opposition team declared that everyone knows that education is the only way to get out of poverty, but you haven't proved how to promote education in underdeveloped families, while we have already done so. Furthermore, you declare that the mental illness will happen on our side. But even if it does happen on our side, it also happens on your side. How come? Because without extra subsidies, children are forced to work, and the stress that were put on them only grows worse, while the stress they put on it eventually will result in the success of the children later. The second speaker of the opposition team stated that girls only spend money on other boys. So it is absolutely absurd because you are implying that all girls in underdeveloped family are bad girls. So that's why you claim that girls are irrelevant in this debate. Furthermore, you also said that the investment will increase the poverty gap. I would say that this is illogical because we say that this subsidies is considered as an investment because these students has the potential and they already have no difficulty in interpreting the knowledge and therefore they have greater chances of success. Finally, the clarifications of the clashes. To begin with, our policy is much more efficient than yours. Why? Because we support the fundamental rights of humans to study and access all forms of education. Furthermore, we create models, positive changes, and we help to relieve the poverty gap. We lift the burden of economy on all families of the underprivileged. But in your world, you are simply denying your own chances to create a better world to live in. Your people stays in a vicious circle of poverty because you are afraid of the opportunity cost. You are too afraid that when you invest money into your children, you fear that they might not gain enough success to overcome the difficulties. I rest my case.
First of all, as the third speaker of the opposition team, I would like to clarify and reinstate our policy for this debate. So in this debate, we would not want to increase subsidies for any children, whether privileged or underprivileged or not, simply for two reasons. First of all, it increased the amount of pressure and stress on these children. So as our first speaker has clarified, there are a lot of different pressures from different sources on these children when you put the increased subsidies into play. First of all, families would see this as a source of income for their family. So they would in turn push their children to study harder and get good grades. So now, because they are not allowed to make any mistakes, they are not allowed to make any flaws, they have to try to maintain these good grades for a very long time. It creates a lot of tension on the child, and it makes the child question whether or not this question their purpose of studying. Second of all, as you are using money as a reward for studying, it missed the real purpose of studying. So as we see it, these children are being motivated by getting monetary rewards, and therefore they're striving to get better grades on these rewards. But it is very short term and it is not worth the amount of stress that is put on them. Putting also into account the factor that these parents are counting on these children as the only hope to bring them out of poverty, it completely missed the purpose of studying. So these children should be at school and improving their knowledge and the required skills for future employment. But instead, these children are studying under the pressure that they have to make a living for the family. And also, but you may say that in your worst case scenario, these children will still get an education and they will still get employment. But we would say that after a very long period of undergoing pressure, the employment that they get will not stand, because simply these children become disoriented in the process. They may not have the qualified skills and knowledge for the employment that they get. After that, I would like to reply to some of the rebuttals from your team's case. First of all, you mentioned the children dropping out of school. We believe that they will not drop out of school for two reasons. First of all, this is a special case where governments and organizations can have scholarships to help these children stay in school. So your reason for dropping out of school, which is not enough money to pay the tuition fee, is therefore invalid. Second of all, it will not stand because these children acknowledge that they have a financial burden because they come from an underprivileged background. So they have to seek a motivation, and that is, like I mentioned, the scholarships. And so with this motivation, they can continue to study and have a better academic performance. No, thank you. Therefore, they will not drop out because of these bad results. And for those reasons, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
So, Ling, you look nice and ready.
I think in this turn. Both speakers tried a lot in order to clarify for a lot of things that the judges had questioned in the previous round, and I think that you guys did really well. Both teams brought me something which is not perfect, not flawless, but I have some material now to work with. I would say that the proposition sign, you have very great structure. I think you try to clarify for your case setup, your clash is okay. But I do not see a lot of highlights for your teams, and I don't see you guys, have a very strong development for the ideas that you had given previously. It was mostly just repeating and summarizing your team's point. For the opposition side today, I think there are certain highlights in your speech, as in you realized for me something. For example, the stress for students nowadays is going to increase, and it is not only increase in healthy way, but it is actually because of the money, and because these family really needs the money, right? The student gonna be even forced to study even more, and they're going to get like double level of stress or something like that. I think that's a very, very nice idea, and you managed to develop those ideas in a very, very short amount of time. I think that is very encouraging. For this round, I believe that I really respect when team members can develop such idea like that, and my 10 points will go to the opposition side.
All right, so 10 points to the opposition team. Stuart, you look ready.
I think with the previous round and obviously a lot of comments from the judges, both sides really tried to kind of reevaluate their ideas and to make it as clear as possible what they were arguing for. And I do think they did that reasonably well, but I think there still remained a few kind of limitations in terms of showing us really how and why subsidies should be increased, particularly for these certain children. And I think also, particularly some of their previous arguments, they didn't always kind of address the limitations of them in their clarification. So, for example, previously we were trying not to focus too much on the female or the women debate as an entire point. And I think you tried to kind of recognize that in your round, but it didn't quite seem that convincing to me that you were using it as just an example rather than a main point itself. I do like the idea that you mentioned that, okay, well, if they receive subsidies, you kind of rebuted the idea that they will inevitably receive or suffer from mental illness and stress, and you said that actually this happens from both sides, regardless of whether you obtain a subsidy or not. And also, the idea of if you don't provide these subsidies, then you're denying an opportunity, and that's kind of goes into your idea of explanation of education and the importance of education as being equal and providing equal opportunities. So I thought that was good. For the opposition side, I think one thing to be a little bit careful of is there were claims that the other team were saying that the subsidies would be a reward, whereas I don't think the other team really said it was a reward at this point. They said it's an enabler. It enables students and families to get to school and receive that further education. So it's not necessarily a reward at this point. But for me, in terms of the points and the development of the points and the kind of clarity of them, my points will go to the proposition side.
Okay. All right, so 50-30. Hugh, I see you scratching your head. I know you're thinking a lot right now. And you guys get ready, because we're going to hear it from Hugh.
It's very hard for me to judge, because I need to find something to say. And to be honest, there's not... Yes, there's a certain improvement, but there's not much for me to say, because a lot of the ideas are just repetition from the previous debaters of each team. So it's the same. It's probably that I'm just repeating myself from the previous feedback I gave, right? With the proposition team, I think you kind of make a mistake that I see quite common, which is, I think, inference. It is very easy to make inference from the other team's arguments, but there's a distinction between a good inference and a bad inference. For example, a bad inference is when you say that based on their argument, they assume that all the girls in the families are bad girls. I think that is actually quite wrong inference, because I think based on their argument, they don't say that girls are bad, right? So be very clear on the inference skills, and I think that is the blind spot of not just you, but like many debaters fall into that blind spot as well. With the opposition team, I do appreciate the fact that you start to take a stance in this route, and you start to pull out a few ideas about employment disorientation in the future, or the monetary reward and its impact on the short term versus the long term. But then it's you fall into, when it goes to the rebuttals and the resolution of the conflicts, there's not much like the other team for me to judge. And it feels like I have to judge this one based on the reinforcement of your old team arguments on both sides. Because on the rebuttals and on the resolution, I don't see any further development for me to say. I would like to see this round go to the reply speech. I'm going to give my 10 point to the opposition team, because in their reaffirmation, there's ideas that I think can be developed by the reply speech. So my 10 point go to the opposition team.
Thank you, judges. So currently 40 points for the opposition and 50 points for the proposition. Thank you so much. So please return back to your seats. Yeah, thank you. We do have the final reply speech after the break.
But in your world, you are simply denying your own chances to create a better world to live in, because you are afraid of the opportunity cost.
Putting also into account the factor that these parents are counting on these children as the only hope to bring them out of poverty, it completely missed the purpose of studying.
But I do not see a lot of highlights for your teams, and I don't see you guys, you know, like have a very strong development for the ideas.
Welcome back to the Debaters Season 2. Without further ado, please let me introduce the contestants. From Team LIVEL, the proposition team, please welcome BIểN, Trận. To my left, the opposition team, Team Circus Clowns, please welcome Min. Okay, are you guys ready or what?
Right.
Ready. Min, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. All right. The final reply speech, as you guys are aware, is a little different. You just have 2 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is not allowed whatsoever. Your team will need to win all 15 points. You guys just need one judge. Okay. Do you understand the rules? And we're ready?
Ready.
Okay. Let the final reply speech begin.
Well, unlike one may think, providing more subsidies for better students not only is effective, but also detrimental and more immoral for every single stakeholders related to this motion. On the other side of the house, they have been talking some strong and stuff, arguing about girls who give all their money to boys and all of those are bad girls. Everybody will think that it is the only way for them to get out of poverty is education, while we said that only the parents of the students think their responsibility is to get them out of poverty, and the only way is for them to go to study, which we believe everybody will agree. And while our team has given clear proofs how every single stakeholders either are benefited or will stay the same, you have come here proposed some stuff that has already collapsed by our characterizations. I believe that half of your minimal evidence is already irrelevant, like Hehanie or stuff about technology that underprivileged families will not have access to. First, the clash of this debate is whether students are more burdened or benefited, which we have already won on. While on your side, all you have been ranting about are how students will drop out of school. How extremely good will it be had the students be provided subsidies in order to go to school, or girls will be empowered? However, we believe otherwise. First, I must pressure that you lack justification, forgetting to say why only your stakeholders they need the most money. Next, your claims affect the more well-off people and little impact on the underprivileged, the real relevance of this motion. On our side, however, we have proved how it is extremely immoral and detrimental on your side. First, we have let the situation as it is. Second, we have proposed how ineffective money is as a motivator, as well as being harmful for children. And even though we believe that life is unfair, but yours, it gets more unfair for the students, long-term and short-term, and even the rich people. But on mine, we believe, let it be the same, it will be better. Very proud to propose.
We are both here to argue, to protect, and to bring benefit to the stakeholders of the case. Throughout the debate, you are always proving that we are wrong, but there is no alternative that proves your side of the has to be true. And I will demonstrate my point in three main sections. Firstly, about the happiness. You say that children will lose their happiness if we increase subsidies based on the strong academic performance. So if were subsidies not increased, are you sure that pressure will not happen? And in our world, we are willing to sacrifice the short-term pressure because our children may suffer from pressure during academic years. However, by this, they can change their life, they can escape from poverty, and in the future they may deserve more happiness. So the pressure in your world is not based on any scientific reasons, but in our world we are willing to sacrifice the short-term happiness of the child so that they will deserve a happier life afterwards. And about the stakeholders, although you say that increased subsidies will make your stakeholders suffer from stress, however, there is no particular benefits that that the families having children performing good at school will be benefits from a fixed subsidies. And in our world, we do not say that we only give subsidies to the girls who studying good, but we are here to say that women, the girls, are the most vulnerable subjects in the society, and we create a situation, we create a competition that are fair for both of them to compete and change their life, and that is my case.
All right, we're done. That's it. You guys okay?
Not really.
But for you guys, I think maybe on the plus side of things, we don't have to listen to the judges. We don't get any of their feedback. So I think that's a good thing. So you can kind of just relax right now. We'll have the final results in a second, okay? So please, please go back to your seats. And with this round, we are not hearing anything from the judges, and we will have the final results right after the break. So welcome back to the Debaters Season 2. Right here in my hands, I have the final results. To my right, we have Team LIVEL with 50 points. To my left, we have the Circus Clowns with 40 points. We have 15 more points to give. I don't want to drag this on because I know you guys are already really nervous and just kind of like, hurry this up, please tell us. But any last words before I give the final results? LIVEL team?
We are here to learn, and we are here to figure out what we are not already good at. So whether the results, and it could be anything, but we are happy with that.
Good. I like to hear that. And kind of branching off that, again, the debaters were here to practice English, encourage debate, seeing things from a different perspective. And I know all of you guys are very, very young, currently the youngest contestants in the debaters. And it's truly remarkable that young adults coming up here and doing such a thing, because you guys have very bright futures ahead of you, regardless of winning or losing. All right. The judges have decided to give all 15 points to one team. Take a deep breath, okay? And tonight's winner, with all 15 points, who currently now has a total of 65 points, is going to Team LIVEL. So you guys, 65 points. Opposition team, Circus Clown, 40 points. So you guys, congratulations. Are you excited? Are you feeling happy right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And for all of you guys at home, thank you so much for watching. Again, debaters, we're here to promote English and seeing things from a different perspective. Debating in this situation is extremely difficult as English is not their first language. Even though I speak English as my first language, I even make mistakes when I am doing this. So you guys, awesome job. Really, really proud of you. And everybody at home, your parents, everybody, extremely proud of you. And I want to give a big shout out to British University Vietnam. Thank you so much for sponsoring the debaters. Audience at home, we'll see you again with another episode on the debaters. Take care, have a good night.